Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live with Steve Grumbine coming to you from the aftermath of Waco, Texas. No, I just kid. Gotta love his backgrounds. Co-founder of The Real Progressive uh, and all-around friend of Status Coup. I said to Steve earlier in the day, I texted him, I said, do you feel like the country's falling apart? Because that's just every moment I look at Twitter, it's just another horrible fucking thing. Mass shootings, environmental genocide, restrictions on women's rights, fascist laws in Texas. And he said, well, I think we're well past that. So I think we're just going to do a bit of stream of consciousness today, talk about a lot of different things. Colin, who's taking some time off, because he was on the road for 2 weeks, did make that badass thumbnail. Let me get it. I don't know if you saw this yet, but
Oh yeah,
it's pretty terrific. So we got steam coming out of both of our ears. I don't
you
know if
got
you're
me as Grumpy
blushing.
the Clown. Grumpy the Clown.
Grumpy the Clown, about 10 years younger, I would say, back in your modeling
That's
days.
that picture
Uh,
right there is literally from 2019. How
wow.
terrible is that?
We've got to do a before and after show. Everybody, smash that like button, share this live stream. We're going to weave in some of the clips from my reporting and my last reporting trip in Flint and Kalamazoo, Lewis's reporting trip in East Palestine. For the last 3 hours, I've been writing FOIA requests, Freedom of Information requests to certain agencies, and reaching out to the EPA, who I believe I've caught dead to rights in a lie. So we are working on some investigative stuff behind the scenes. But I wanted to really just talk about, I think, this country and the rising fascist threat. And you could lump that in with a lot of different things: political fascism, mass violence, economic fascism. I kind of put the fascist threat, I mix in all of the distractions and all of the hate out there, the growing attacks on trans people, on migrants, on the other, obviously the mass shootings, which I covered yesterday, and we could talk about a little bit. This latest mass shooter that butchered 8 in Texas was, it seems, Hispanic, but also a neo-Nazi. And, you know, if you look into it, there is a growing portion of neo-Nazis in America that are not just white, are people of color. And as I read yesterday, for those that didn't see it, I'll read a little bit today. His manifesto was a carte blanche of a lot of these things we're talking about: homophobia, misogyny, anti-trans, a lot of these distractions. He reportedly loved libs of TikTok, which I would call a hate account on Twitter, that is responsible for a lot of the bomb threats into the Boston Children's Hospital for quote unquote child mutilation. Loved Tim Pool, who I would call a grifter, but definitely has sprinkled in some fascism. Was an election denier, claims he's a liberal, but is really just kind of a MAGA guy. Um, and then you mix in that there's different data, but I could just read this from where is this from? God, I have so much on my screen. Does income inequality drive U.S. mass shootings? So this is from the crime report. Let me here. Communities experiencing growing levels of income inequality are at a heightened risk for mass shootings, according to a study in the upcoming December issue of BMC Public Health Journal. Although analyses of mass shootings, commonly defined as incidents involving 3 or more victim-related injuries, usually focus on the troubled mental health of an individual shooter, the author of the study argue that hostile social environments, which I think our friend Steve Grumbine likes to call social murder, created by a shift in communities' socioeconomic profile, can be a critical factor. An analysis of such shootings between 1990 and 2015 suggests that they are more likely to take place in counties with growing levels of income inequality, wrote co-authors Roy Kwon and Joseph Cabrera. The quote, clear conclusion from our results is that socioeconomic factors such as income inequality are the main driver of mass shootings in the United States. And Steve, I'm just going to kind of give a murderer's row before you go on a long monologue. But I mean, I just kind of have a bunch of stuff here. This is 2 days after 2 days after a man drove through a crowd of asylum seekers, killing 8. The Texas House will vote on a bill to create a vigilante police force to round up migrants. Let me show the audience. Again, this is me handling the tech, so apologies. I do my best, but Colin is better. Here we go. Within the state of Texas, officers of the unit may, to the extent consistent with the Constitution and federal law, arrest, detain, and deter individuals crossing the border illegally, including with the use of non-deadly force. Notwithstanding any other law, the unit chief and all officers and employees of the unit, as well as law-abiding citizens employed to participate in unit operations under section blah, 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 shall have immunity from criminal and civil liability for any actions taken that are authorized by this subchapter. I'd like to see this written for community participation for bankers, for fossil fuel executives, for pharmaceutical executives, but Texas wants to do it for migrants. So that's what's going on in Texas, who, by the way, brought you the vigilante abortion law that sanctioned any Americans in Texas, any Texas citizens, to go ahead and start calling people in who were doing abortions and targeting them. Then you have, I don't often cite Rachel Maddow, but this came from her. She shined a light on some of the attendees of an event hosted this week at Trump's National Doral. Scott McKay and Charlie Ward will appear on the latest leg of Reawaken America tour. Both have expressed anti-Semitic views in support of Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler. Trump's son, Eric, and his wife, and a whole bunch of other Trump folks will also talk at this event. I'm assuming they know who else is there and probably just don't care. Then you look at this. We're just running the gamut.
Jordan, you're just showing this legal document here. The one that's all that's showing on there right now, just so you know.
So you're telling me to actually mix in all these things. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, window. That's why. I'm a fucking idiot. All right. Then you have Wendell Potter, who reported health insurers spent nearly $141 billion buying back their own shares of stocks from 2007 to 2022, so about 15 years, to benefit their top execs and Wall Street investors, while premiums and deductibles have skyrocketed for millions of Americans. So we've seen a lot of violence from people who are growing in debt from health care, lack of health insurance, are sick but cannot afford care, et cetera, et cetera. I got more, and we'll show more as we go, but that's a good start, Steve. There is, whether it be hate, culture war distractions, economic hate, there is a rise of fascism, and I would argue it's coming directly from our neoliberal free market economy. It's not the sole reason for a lot of these mass shootings and violence, but I would say it's definitely one of the underlying causes.
No, it is the cause, in my opinion. It's just, the problem is that if we don't see a direct tie 1-to-1, we lose our minds. It's impossible to abstract how things link together because we don't have a systematic approach to assessing the way things flow. We don't have the inputs and outputs, and we don't follow it through. If you think about this, and this is, to me, this is really super important. Right now, the only reason the economy is not in recession, and this is going to make you throw up. The only reason the economy is not in recession right now is because of the higher interest rates. Walk with me for a minute, okay? Those interest rates are a net infusion of new money into the economy. And so as a result of that, you got to look where that money is going. It's going to the top. And as a result of it going to the top, it makes it look on paper like, hey, the economy's great. Everybody's got a job. Well, everybody might have 10 jobs, okay? The bottom line is that the economy is only great for a certain group of people, okay? And so as a result of that, you've got the news saying everything's wonderful, and people are checking themselves like, not in my world, it's not wonderful, okay? And now all of a sudden, as they reduce money spent into the regular economy where you and I would find it, what they've done is they create a credit situation where we, instead of being able to get it from our paychecks and be able to survive that way, we have to take on private debt. As a result of private debt, they've increased interest rates on borrowing. So now it costs more than it did previously. Okay. So, with all that in mind, life is harder for regular people right now. Everything about it is harder for regular people right now. And because of the false positives in the reporting, it makes it appear differently. But when you go without healthcare, when you go without your teeth being fixed, when you are sitting there juggling your mortgage payment with your kids' healthcare, et cetera, you're in a position now where life is really hard. Now take that and extrapolate that out. If somebody has less money to spend, somebody's spending is someone else's income. So the small shops start pinching back, and the small shops hiring people eventually lay them off. Right now, it looks like we've got a lot of employment. My God, it's robust, it's screaming. But the reality is that the cost of living has gone up so much, and people's expendable or disposable income is so little, and the debts are piling up. And as they've created an economy once again that will begin, it hasn't fully started yet, but it will begin to really start heading in the way of private credit, where we're going to have to backfill our needs through taking out debt. This is how these things start going. This is how it went bad previously. It's how it's going to start going bad again. We're going to have an unsustainable level of private debt to keep the economy going. And once people stop being able to borrow money, it's going to create a recession for real, and one that they can't hide with the interest payments going to the rich unless they jack interest rates up to 25%. Okay. But right now, regular people are really struggling, and there's no one out there reporting on it. And so when you think about what struggle does to a person, when you think about not being able to sleep at night, you think about not eating correctly, you think about being in chronic pain and fear, etc., eventually you can either decide to fight back, and that might be, politically or an activist, or you may just give in. And that's when the suicides and the violence kick in. And I think that what we're also seeing is as people stop having choices in the real economy, they start going back to old things that we knew before: the drug economy, illicit economy, dealing in things that are outside of that normal channel. And that's when the violence starts happening. And it starts happening simply because people have lost hope. And politically speaking, this is really important. The way this game plays out is we believe on paper that the Democrats are the party of big government, that the party of welfare, and the party of spending big on the people, but they're not doing those things. And so what ends up happening as they start doing austerity themselves, the Republicans point over there and they see, the Democrats aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And then you get these people that don't have any analysis whatsoever that say, yeah, the Democrats are failing us. And they are failing us, by the way. But they equate that to, okay, the Republicans must be the good guys then. And then these dipshits start voting Republican, and they start hanging out and they start talking Republican. And that's how come all of a sudden the anti-immigrant sentiment kicks in, the anti-trans sentiment kicks in, the anti-LGBT, sentiment kicks in. All the different factors start happening. And that is where we're at today, is the self-reinforcing back and forth ratchet effect of the Democrats failing to deliver, the GOP saying, see, they weren't really about you, people voting for the GOP, and then the GOP doing all manner of crap back. And then the Democrats saying, hey, we're here to help you. And then the same exact thing goes on and on and on. And we're at a point now post-Trump, post-COVID, okay, where people have lost their minds because of the Fauci stuff, because of the misinformation chronically from all that we had to deal with through the pandemic, and the battle of misinformation and the battle of who's screwing who. And so people have gotten to the point where nothing is truth anymore. There is no truth. We're in a post-truth society. So that is a very destabilizing feeling, okay? And what ends up happening? People end up doing things that they wouldn't otherwise do if they were taking care of their basic needs were met. And so we're seeing the beginning of that kind of dog eat dog. It's not the beginning. It's probably further along than we know. But it has been like this for some time, and it's only getting worse. And I don't blame the guns. I blame the government. I blame the parties. I blame the power elite for doing this type of austerity treatment to the public. and we're ill-equipped to even fight back. We don't even understand the problem. We don't even understand what austerity is. We don't understand that when the government cuts back spending, it's not just hurting big business, it's hurting us. We're the bottom line. When the shit falls down, we're the ones that catch it. And people just get all giddy thinking that, hey, reduce the deficit, cut that spending, get rid of the debt. And they don't understand that they're angry and they're fighting for something that literally is bringing about fascism. It's bringing about the conditions that create scapegoats and create all kinds of violence. And it's inherent in the system. It's not late stage capitalism. God, I wish we could get out of these stage gates, because the idea of stage gates is rooted in some old stuff that isn't real. The fact is that we could dial this back. All it would take is regulation, but our government isn't there to protect us anymore. The government is bought, paid for. It is absolutely 100% captured. And as a result of that, every policy that comes from it is directly towards this neoliberal. Every program's set to fail. And so every program, once it fails, people can point at it and say, see, what a piece of shit. Government sucks. We got to take it out here, privatize it, and create more fascism. And that's where we're at. And that's why the violence is ramping up.
I want to read this. And by the way, I'm just pressing buttons right now. I don't even know which ones do which, because Colin usually does this shit. So just bear with me. I want to read some of these stats. This is from a Pulitzer Prize winning author's new book on poverty. Let me zoom in. Over the last 50 years, the poverty rate in the U.S. has barely budged. Around 11% of the U.S. population was considered poor in 2019. In 1970, just about 12%. There's no real improvement, just a long stasis. Sociologist Matthew Desmond writes in his new book, Poverty by America, wages rose slowly for the poorest Americans. Since 1979, the bottom 90% of income earners in the U.S. experienced annual earnings gains of only 24%, Desmond writes, while the wages of the top 1% of earners more than doubled. His findings are based on data from a number of sources. More government aid for the financially comfortable, i.e. corporate welfare. 2020, the federal government spent $53 billion on direct housing assistance for the needy. That same year, it shelled out over $193 billion on homeowner subsidies, such as home mortgage interest deduction. Desmond analyzed tax data from a number of sources. 1 in 18 live in deep poverty. In 2020, the category included people who make less than $6,380 a year. The racial wealth gap is as large as in the 60s. So don't buy whatever Biden bullshit is about record unemployment among Black people, and overdraft fees mostly paid by the poor.
Uh-oh.
And then suppose that. You got me?
I hear you now. Yep.
I wanted to show that and then juxtapose that with this shooter's apparent manifesto, which, let me find it. I'll read it because it's obviously kind of hard to read. Real men don't murder innocent victims. RIP to all victims and my condolences. No, no, no. Fuck all of this noise. It's all so empty, fake, and boring. Every school shooting to me is the perfect time to be a completely horrible person and see this event like a sport or a comedy. The most important thing about a school shooting is to know the race of the person who did it, the kill count, and then compare the accomplishment of murder to all those who came before. And also learn intricately the life of the killer so memes could be made. Because let's face it, killing people in an interesting way is an art that earns a lot of respect, just inherently. The tenuousness of life forces it to be this way, and to play into the moral banality of it as normies do is kind of gay to me. It's funny how pomp and circumstance to murder reaction has become this, quote, forced solemn church moment we all forced to affect around in public in order to feel normal. When the reality is, I just know, all caps, a lot of people are just like me and want to revel in the schadenfreude. The media fucking proves it. They will never miss an opportunity to cover the event and cater the coverage exactly for sick fucks like me. Because the heart of the matter is, we all know it's just a fucking spectacle at this point, and the spectacle and the killer is far more interesting than the boring fucks who were killed. This is always humor in darkness. So the Nashville shooter was particularly interesting because a bitch broke the ER barrier with a decent kill score for the first time. This is like the greatest accomplishment of feminism ever for a Foyd, even though a tranny, but still a vagina haver, to feel so empowered that they could take it upon themselves to pick themselves by the bootstraps, get their gear in order, and successfully go ER in a moment Valerie Salonas would be proud of. Only feminism could have taken biological women to the logical extreme of embodying the highest pinnacles of masculinity. So the reason I read that, obviously it's a little disjointed, but you get a clear issue, a clear picture that he's a misogynist, seems homophobic, transphobic. There were other stuff on his profiles. He wasn't a fan of the Asian community. This area in Texas actually had a decent Asian population. Some of the victims were Asian. He did some Hail Hitlers on his postings at time. As you could see here, I don't know if that was him or he was just posting pictures of people with swastikas. We could say, I can't give you an empirical study that this deranged person did this in large part because he was poor. We do know he was, for a short term, I think it was in 2008, entered the military, and they removed him pretty quickly, citing issues. I don't know the whole story, but you assume either violence, mental health, whatever it is. But I think what it goes to show you, I'm pretty sure this guy did not come from a wealthy background. I'm pretty sure this guy did not come from a comfortable background. I'm pretty sure, whether it be through trauma or other things, people like this, generally speaking, are lacking something in their life. Not to say there's never been wealthy people that commit violence, of course not. But to become this hateful and to be radicalized by the other. And yes, we can point out media people that help radicalize these folks. He also was big on 4chan, Tim Pool, libs of TikTok, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is, you didn't see that. I mean, there was like a decent amount of guns in the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s. It wasn't to the degree it is now, but America has always been kind of a gun culture, particularly in certain regions. But what you saw in those time frames were strong labor unions. What you saw in that era was kind of I believe, more of a collective approach to, yes, the boss always made more, but people kind of cared if their neighbor was starving. It used to be back in the mid 20th century, it was a competition between CEOs. Because we bragged if you were an American CEO about the jobs we were creating, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't this greed is good shit that we got in the 1980s. And I think what you're seeing now, top to bottom, we haven't had a minimum wage raise in over a decade. You basically at $7.25 will starve. Sorry about this crapping out. Can you see? Hear me?
Yeah, your connection's cutting in and out. That's all.
All right. I'll let you go. But basically, what I was saying is, our societal fabric is tearing apart across the board, and I think a big part of it is what we've been talking about, which is we're not basically. This is metal capitalism, what we're doing right now. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that once again, we have a situation where people don't understand the direct connections between scapegoating, fascism, poverty, and the economics of society, right? Society requires everyone to have a piece of the pie. Otherwise, people begin to resent one another. And I'm going to show you something. Jordan, do I have your permission to share my screen momentarily?
Yep.
I'm going to share you something. And this is someone that you and I both have known for a very long time. It's a tweet and it's very depressing. When I saw this, I really strongly debated whether or not I was going to even bring this up, but I think it's important to show. This right here is Tim Canova, his Twitter feed, okay? And he is sharing tweets, retweeting tweets saying New York City cop attacked in broad daylight by stick-wielding black man. We fear for our lives, black people. Patterns matter. This is what Tim Canova, a guy who at one point in time I would have supported for president, a guy who at one point in time I would have called a very good friend, I would have asked to be on the board of directors for my nonprofit, a guy who I felt, was robbed by the DNC, and I think he was robbed by the DNC. But the truth of the matter is that unfortunately, Tim bought into the fascism. And so as a result of that, this is what we're watching. It's not hard to see the scapegoating. It's not hard to see. And this right here is the alt-right angle. This is what is happening. And I don't know, Tim, I hope you hear me. I hope you come back. I hope this is
Can I just give a little context, because a lot of our audience might not know who he is, because I actually think he's a good example. And I met Tim Canova in 2016. He, other than Bernie, and obviously Bernie was the main show in town nationally, underdog campaign, an upset victory over Hillary Clinton after the next. But other than the national race, Tim Canova on the down ballot was the biggest name. He was running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who, other than Hillary Clinton, was the #2 most hated progressive. Obviously, on the eve of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign in shame for all those emails that came out showing that she threw her whole body on the scale for Hillary Clinton. And Tim Canova challenged her. He lost by 14 points, but it was very clear that there was election fraud. The Broward County Board of Election Supervisor, who was like a BFF of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, had destroyed the paper ballots, which is illegal, and didn't go to jail because why would she? This is America. And if you're doing crimes for the oligarchy, you're fine. We should mention off the top of this show that Trump was just found responsible civilly over these rape allegations against author E. Jean Carroll, I believe was her name. So he now owes her $5 million. Good luck. I don't know if you'll get Trump to pay that. But anyway, so Tim, understandably, because he was screwed, and we're talking about we're all getting screwed in one way or another from this sick, rotten, cruel, neoliberal society, economically, socially, in a way, we're all victims of this, some worse than others. But Tim, you saw that path. When I met him, really bright guy, a professor, I think a law professor, cared about the right things, Medicare for all, had some opinions you'd probably agree with on the Federal Reserve, and was a really progressive guy. But although the source of his radicalization, you could understand he got robbed, he slowly but surely started going down this right-wing path, slowly but surely started going down boosting Trump online, slowly but surely, well, not slowly but surely, went all in for Trump's bullshit election lie in 2020. And then you start hearing the tweets from him and all this stuff about the border. And before you know it, he sounds like what he used to rail against. And this comes from, in his case, I wouldn't call it, he was economically insecure and that led to it. But a lot of the things we're talking about, the political corruption, the rigged society, running for office and literally getting screwed. I don't know if he would have won if it was a free and fair election, but he would have come a lot closer without that. We just don't know. So I think I wanted the audience to know the context because he's a great example.
Yep.
Yeah.
I loved Tim, literally. I mean, if you can go back in time to right around 2016, we had a huge rally in Washington, D.C. that we had spearheaded, called the Take Back Democracy March. And Tim was one of the speakers there, and Tim was a very good friend. And I remember sitting down with he and Claudia Stauber in an apartment in Adams Morgan. And it was my first time meeting him, and I about turned into a puddle of water. I was so excited. I mean, I was just like, holy crap, I'm meeting one of my heroes. You know what I mean? I didn't realize. And so we developed a very good friendship. I mean, he started his non-profit called Progress for All. But you know what? When he got screwed, something changed in him. And I understand, because see, not being a Democrat is not the same as becoming a fascist. You can hate the Democrats and the Republicans. There's no requirement to swing to the other direction just to own shit libs, right? And I think that his bitterness really got him. I mean, he lost pretty much all of his money. I mean, he literally was run into the ground with this. I mean, I have more sympathy for the guy, but to see what he's doing, it is the absolute poster child for what the Democrats and their strong handling of elections and their shit delivery when they're in power and all the nonsense that they put out, the identity politics and all the other crap they throw out there, instead of economic justice, instead of delivering, it creates the conditions that led to Tim Canova going this way. And I feel horrible about that. I mean, I loved Tim. I know who he was. I know who I talked to. I know the man that I met. And to see this happen, it is absolutely a testament to Democratic fuckery. I mean, what they've been doing has destroyed what was for the Bernie Sanders movement. It destroyed what is the progressive movement in many ways. And we're now a fractured, shattered group of people desperately trying to find a home. And Tim went where he was welcome. Tim went to this group.
I also think, and by the way, folks, I'm going to have good news in a short while that actually shows our on-the-ground reporting is doing something. So stay tuned for that. I just got sent something that shows that our reporting in Kalamazoo last week did something. So that's good. But it's beyond Tim. I mean, just look at, and there's actually been reports about this. There's a good amount of the Bernie movement that kind of teetered off to QAnon, right? There's a good amount of the Bernie movement that kind of teetered off to Trump. Originally, when I went on the road in 2016, a lot of those Trump rallies, I asked them, who was your number two? I thought it'd be Ted Cruz or one of the other people on the Republican clown car. It was Bernie, not because they necessarily agreed with every policy, but because he was the only one speaking to that economic anger inside of them. That anger against the establishment. And it also has the opposite effect. A lot of people that knocked on doors for Bernie once or twice, gave a lot of their money that they really couldn't afford, were so angry by the rigging, by the open and brazen DNC in court saying, we could decide the candidate, among smoking cigars in a back room, that they said, I'm going to Trump just to spite these motherfuckers. I'm going to vote for Republicans just to burn down the DNC. And you slowly but surely, you don't even realize, you start becoming more open. I mean, for God's sakes, not that I thought now in retrospect, I don't know if she ever truly was saying that, truly standing for what she believed in. But Tulsi Gabbard goes from an aloha to like genital mutilation. And a lot of the Tulsi stands, I mean, a lot of them have, departed ways with her, but a lot of them still defend her when she's just brazenly out there doing the Fox News act. It wouldn't surprise me if they have her replace, Mr. Carlson. So, yeah. But, I said, let's just do a stream of consciousness stream, but I don't know the answer. I have to be honest. Part of why, if you watch Status Coup religiously, part of why I have not been covering politics as much. What I mean by that is the rat race and what's up with Bernie or Marianne Williamson's campaign or RFK, which I don't even want to cover because I don't care how populist he sounds. He's a fucking lunatic, dangerous nut when it comes to science. So I'm not down with, well, let's just compartmentalize the good things.
Economics too.
Yeah. But I've been covering more of the environmental genocide, and I've been covering things that I think I can make a difference on. Because honestly, I don't want to lie to the audience that there is a lot of hope right now politically. There's not a lot of hope politically. That doesn't mean I'm telling you not to vote. Everybody should do what they want. But politically, we have a bunch of fucking mini Nancy Pelosi's in Congress at this point who have been neutered. I don't know even if before they were spayed, if they had any spine. Bernie, God bless him. I'll always appreciate what he's done. But it is what it is. He is tired. He should get out of there if he's not willing to fight. There was no reason at all, no logical reason I could think of for him to endorse Joe Biden, even if he wanted to play kingmaker, even if he wanted to string it out and say, hey, I'm going to sit it out. My endorsement matters. I'll let them come to me. Even if down the road he would have endorsed Biden, which would have pissed me off, at least fucking get something tangible now for it. It's called politics. He didn't. I mean, I could keep going, but I've been covering East Palestine, Flint, Kalamazoo, other things, because I feel like those things make a difference, at least in getting people's stories out, making sure that these stories remain crises, and making sure people understand there's still crises. Because what am I going to lie to the audience if I cover Marianne Williamson? I'll cover it, but is that going to change anything for anybody? Probably not. So I guess what I'm saying is I think we're at a very dangerous point, and I think what we badly need is some type of economic organizing of people coming together. But everybody is so fractured and so despondent right now. I just don't see the blueprint for it to come together.
Let me say this. I have
might I just say, smash that like button, share this live stream. Super chats are appreciated. We need you. We got 15 new members yesterday. Let me repeat, 15 new members, thanks to 2 of you purchasing gift memberships. I wish I could tell you how to do it because I still haven't figured it out, but 2 of you guys on YouTube purchased gift memberships. Cadillac, I don't know how to spell it, purchased 5 gift memberships, and then Joanna purchased 10. So we got 15 new members thanks to 2 of you purchasing new gift memberships. We need more people to sign up as Status Coup members or purchase a gift membership. Sign up statuscoup.com/join, because I am going to play a few clips from our most recent reporting trip. And this shit was not cheap. We were on the road for 2 weeks. Steve knows how expensive that is, doing that kind of journalism, paying freelancers, hotels, rent a car. I have a feeling I'm going to have to go back probably to 2 of these cities that I was just in, because I'm working on investigative pieces on both. So please, if it's within your means, 16 cents a day. That's all it costs. $5 a month. $5 a month is 16 cents a day. 33 cents a day equals $10 a month. So trade 1 day of Starbucks or whatever your pleasure is that you don't need and put it towards real journalism. Go ahead, Steve.
So I have a very good friend who's in the union. He's up in the union, higher up in the union, an organizer in North Carolina. And he messages me throughout the weekend, and he's in tears. And he's like, Steve, he goes, we're going to have to leave North Carolina. There's no remote way that a person that's even sort of left, much less a leftist like myself, can survive in North Carolina. Oh. Wow, that was weird. Anyway, so he said, there's no way that I can survive in North Carolina. And lo and behold, he is absolutely destitute, just completely beyond hope. Nobody shows up to do things. Nobody shows up for rallies. Nobody shows up to organize. Nobody's even willing to talk. Most people are there just busy waiting to get the gays, waiting to get the trans people, waiting to make the counselors in the schools talk to the parents so they can stop the trans kids from having thoughts, on and on and on. I mean, like top to bottom. And it's not just that, it's everything. It's like, you mean to tell me they might want to have some bread? Cut that out. You think that if they're on welfare, they should get food stamps? Fuck that. Cut that out. I mean, like every step along the way, every possible evil. Okay. And this, you know, I don't think you can vote your way out of that. I mean, I think the vote, like somebody said in the crowd, basically the vote is useless. But regardless, though, you can't even organize outside of that because you're outnumbered. The boll weevils, the Dixiecrats, the Republicans, the GOP MAGAs, that state is a cesspool of right-wing crap. And it's fascist as fuck. And it truly is terrifying because that's North Carolina. That's kind of in the middle there. That's not too south. I mean, you go to South Carolina and they got even worse shit going on. And just below there, you got Georgia, and then you got freaking Florida. I mean, half of this country is beyond fucked, and the other half is still drinking the vote blue Kool-Aid. We are in a really bad place, man. This guy is sitting there telling me flat out, I can't get the union to organize beyond their nose. They are not willing to do class struggle unionism where it's beyond just our little shop floor. It's broader than that, where they can make the big kind of militant impact on politics as well. can't achieve any of this stuff because people are not willing to put themselves into the line of fire. They're not willing to volunteer. They're not willing to engage in this space at all. So, and this is top to bottom. And you notice even the most successful folks out there aren't really all that successful when it comes to left organizing. You're literally sitting there watching nothing happen fast, but people are getting killed, gunned down. People are freaking losing their homes. And quite frankly, the real impacts are so bad that eventually you're going to have nothing but murder. I mean, there's going to be nothing but violence if we don't put something together to change and end this shitty system, this neoliberal capitalist system that we're living in. And quite frankly, we don't have the numbers. And the people that do know this stuff are too small. And the people that don't know this stuff are too large and not interested in learning. And this is where we're at. And so without some form of class analysis, without some sort of class struggle based in unions, and not just shop floor union, but class struggle union, we don't have any group that'll actually fight back. We are literally without any kind of weapon of fighting back other than ourselves. And we keep saying, I've got other things to do. I'm more interested in doing something else. And this is universal. And he has come back and said, Steve, I'm about to give up. I'm about to give up. I've been doing this forever. And I realize people genuinely don't want to fight back. They're not willing to fight back. They're not willing to own that they have to do something other than sit there and wait for someone else to do something. And I'm telling you right now, Jordan, if you're looking for solutions, this is the problem. You can't vote. Even if voting were the answer, it is only a part of the answer. And because when we vote, we still don't have power because the Democrats literally block populism from having any say so in the party. As a result of that, as a result of the structural issues within that party, there's no prayer of voting through that. So that means you've got to do something outside of it, and people are still waiting. It's like, oh, you're not popular enough to join. Oh, you're not this, or you, and he just won't participate, will not. So we can complain till the cows come home, but unless we're willing to do something about it, it isn't going to change. Anyway, go ahead, Jordan.
I think a couple things, and this is why I understand for the YouTube channels that have made a lot of money off of Dem exit and our only hope is a third party and all this. Yeah. And I've interviewed a lot of independents and Green Party candidates. I've even interviewed libertarians. So my thing has never been, contrary to how they have castigated me, my thing has never been shitting on efforts to build a third party. But I've always wanted to be clear with people, you're being conned if people are telling you that that's the magic pill, because it's not.
Exactly. Not at all.
The whole system is rigged, whether it's
yes.
Democratic Party, Republican Party, or running third party, because they're going to rig it against third parties too, because the system is really theater. We don't actually have a functioning government. We have a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate masquerading as representative government. Let me repeat. We have a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate masquerading as government. So even if, let's just throw it out there, Governor Jesse Ventura ran third party, which a lot of people liked. I'd love to see it. I don't agree with him on everything, but he's one of the rare people you think could actually knock Trump in the face on a debate stage if he ever got on a debate stage, figuratively, maybe literally. But it would be rigged against him. Even if we got a third party candidate in as president, you think they're ever going to allow a third party candidate to do anything in a duopoly system? So the point is, I think a lot of people have been fed kind of fool's gold that the magic thing is burning down the Democratic Party and going the third party route. Or the magic thing is, let's build a third party, and if we just succeed once, that'll do it. Or the magic thing was getting Bernie in there, which even I at one point years ago thought that could change the thing. The one thing I hate to agree with him because I don't really like the direction he's gone, but I think Cenk, my old boss, was right about one thing. The root of it all, you gotta address the corruption of the system. I think he's become more comfortable with the corruption of the system, but you have to address that we have a bought government. You have to tackle money in politics. You have to go back to at least where we were before certain Supreme Court decisions in the 70s, like what was it, Valello, I think.
Amy Vilela?
No, there was a decision. Walker always talks about it in the 1970s. But we have to at least get back to a place where corporations weren't literally calling the shots of our government. Because it really doesn't matter if you have a successful third-party candidate, if you don't have a government. You have a multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate. I would love to see a third party, a fourth party, or a fifth party, but it's kind of an illusion that it's a representative government.
Yes.
Because even if you got Jesse Ventura as president, sure, you could do some executive actions and all that. But even if you got a populist in there, I don't care what they are, Democrat, third party, marshmallow, in this system, which exists to rig it with filibusters and parliamentarians and bipartisan compromise, which is just corporations and lobbyists writing the bills, literally writing the bills. And until we fight like hell against that, I want to use Occupy Wall Street as an example, because I think that's the last true example non-politically. That was not a political movement. It was an organizing movement. Some politicians jumped on it for photo ops, but they were not part of building it. But Occupy Wall Street for a short while organized what we're talking about, this economic organizing outside of Wall Street. And it started getting mass media attention. And I didn't agree with the structure in terms of we don't want leaders and kumbaya and let's make hemp together. But the point is, it was organized against Wall Street, who, in my view, is 1A or 1B of buying the government, right? And what happened? As it was building momentum, they fucking sent their police out to crack it in half, right? So I'm not saying we need another Occupy Wall Street. I'm saying, look at France. They fucking stormed the Bastille, not literally, but you get the point, over raising the retirement age by 2 years. And they've scored a lot of victories through their protests. They're able to do it more because they have some social benefits that we don't have, like healthcare and et cetera, that they have something to fall back on, which allows them to protest more freely as societies. But wherever you go, people are so deflated in this country, and that is what the system wants. So you won't fight. I want to play this one clip, and it's on a completely unrelated topic, but I think it applies.
Okay.
This was Lewis on the ground recently. We've been staying on East Palestine. It's over 3 months since a fucking petrochemical mushroom cloud exploded over Ohio and Pennsylvania. The residents are still sick. This is an in-your-face cover-up. I mean, they're not being subtle about it. The residents are sick, but the EPA's testing is showing everything's fine. The CDC is telling doctors don't test for vinyl chloride, one of the most toxic chemicals known to man that will cause rare forms of liver cancer, lung cancer, miscarriages in women. Horrible stuff that they blew up 5 trains of. The CDC is telling doctors and healthcare providers, don't test for vinyl chloride. Residents are having to go to local chiropractors to get scripts to test their urine for vinyl chloride. And guess what? They're finding elevated levels of vinyl chloride, which I'm sorry to say is almost a guarantee at cancer in a few years. I want to show just this one woman, and I'll loop it back to what we're talking about. But this is just one clip and why it's so important. Frankly, support our work as a member. We only afford these trips because of people who sign up as members. This is Chrissy Ferguson, who lives right above a creek that was heavily contaminated from this train.
Test isn't a perfect test, but with the number of folks in town now who are testing positive for this thioglycolic acid, they're saying that it would be almost impossible to align this to something else, that when this is happening so widespread in this town, that it's definitely going to be attributed to the tanker cars filled with vinyl chloride that were set on fire in this small town. I guess, what is it? What was your reaction to seeing that news when you first got those results?
Well, your life stops in a second. Everything that you have planned and wanted, all I've ever wanted is to be a grandma. And I don't want to rush my daughter to do that, but am I going to be around to be a grandma? Her boyfriend, no, neither one of us sleep in this town. He is here for school. School's supposed to be safe. He doesn't smoke. He's 18, an athlete. He has an insurance as well. That's telling me when you're at the school, you're not safe.
Right.
Somebody needs to start being honest. And they need to really start helping us.
Yeah.
Someone in this country should be able to help our town. You've did more for us than anyone.
And
The doctor informed me that mine was the highest that he had seen to date.
yours is the highest that I've seen as well, and I've seen quite a few as well. Yours was in the like 0.9 or so, and we'll show
9.4.
folks what it is. But yeah.
Of
and I-
all the things to take first place in, this is something that you don't want to be first.
So that's a terrible thing. This poor woman, her house smells like a fucking gas station. It's right above a creek. The EPA, for those of you that have been watching Lewis's coverage, they fudged her data, the EPA and Norfolk Southern. They basically blew up this town and are telling the people, don't believe your bloody noses. Don't believe your rashes on your body. Don't believe your dizziness, your nausea, your burning eyes, and worse symptoms. And why I'm looping all this in? Of course, this is far different than other things, but you don't think there's people out there crying because Biden is removing 15 million people from Medicaid that shouldn't be removed from Medicaid? You don't think there's people out there suffering because Biden backdoor is trying to privatize Medicare? You don't think there's people out there suffering because, I mean, literally AI is projected to replace 300 billion. Was it 300? Yeah, 300 million jobs. You don't think there's people out there suffering because they're working 3 jobs and are basically having to ration insulin and other things? So people are crying for different reasons. Some, their towns were nuked, and others, their government is nuking them economically, societally. Maybe people think that's kind of a weird connection, but that's just what I think, because we're basically, it's all corruption, whether it's the EPA lying, whether it's Norfolk Southern lying, whether it's the government and the Democrats lying to you that everything's rosy. The economy's doing great. Unemployment's low. For fuck's sake, earlier, I forgot to show it on screen. The healthcare industry from 2007 to 2022, so over a decade, has bought back $141 million of stock buybacks. That is all just, it's like a mafia. It's totally unnecessary, middleman. Bump up the prices. That's what the mafia does. Kickbacks. That's what private healthcare is. And it's killing people. Like my friend Steve says, austerity is murder. So I don't know if that made sense to you, Steve, but I'm basically saying that this woman obviously has an acute situation going on, but there's millions of other people for different reasons. Every day is a struggle, and they don't know how much longer they're going to survive.
Yeah. I mean, you've got 3 key factors here. Number 1 is not using the power of the federal government money-wise to take care of these situations on time in a way that actually helps the people. That's the fiscal side. Then you have the austerity side, which is making people have to go into private debt because of the monetary system fucking them royally once again. And the last one is the next one that they're trying to do, and that's layoffs. They're trying to create layoffs. They're saying it's such a great economy. So you got 3 angles that they're coming at us with. And what you're showing there is, once again, it's a way of the government abdicating its responsibility to solve these problems with the money, the public money that it creates every time it spends. It's not taxpayer dollars, folks. But anyway, the bottom line is the federal government could do all this stuff, and it's not doing it. That is by design. It's intentionally not doing it. And by intentionally not doing it, it's creating the conditions that poor woman is suffering through. Because if you leave it in the hands of a corporation has one responsibility and one responsibility only, and that is to maximize profit for their shareholders. Other than that, they have no responsibility. Nothing, zero. There's no corporate citizenship. There's no corporate, but there's they are citizens. So business is a voting citizen, apparently, right? So at the end of the day, this is exactly what you're nailed it. This is exactly part of that equation that is driving the push to fascism. Because what's going to happen? Let's be fair. These people in East Palestine are going to look and they're going to say the Biden administration didn't do X, Y, Z. And then Trump is going to come on there and he's going to say, look at Joe Biden. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And Trump's going to be absolutely correct. He didn't. Right. But that doesn't mean that Trump's solution is good. The fact is that these things are set up and you could almost write the script in advance and be correct when it happens. That's the deal. Anyway.
I got to say, I know you got to go soon, but I got to say, I've been doing this a long time. I go through cycles myself. There's times when I just am a little despondent myself, and I don't necessarily fake it for. I have to put up just a little bit, and there's even though internally I'm not much is changing, right? But at the end of the day, I think we have a lot more power than they've convinced us that we don't.
We do.
I think we have a lot more power than they have convinced us. I just think the multi-trillion-dollar corporate conglomerate that is our government is a lot more organized than we are as a citizenry. I think it's a lot more organized. I think it has a lot more fail-safes. If one level, fails, there's backups. And I think we all need to get serious. There's been the online fighting of the last years and clickbait and all that shit. We're going to be sitting here in 10 years talking about the same shit, having the same fights, unless there's serious organizing, serious organizing. And I believe some type of lasting economic boycott from top to bottom, because they're not going to give an inch unless you interrupt their gravy train. And the they is the government, the donors, all of that. And I think people, it's going to start small, but I think people need to really start looking into their own community, as you and I have talked about in the past, about how they could fight back economically against banking, fossil fuel industry, pharmaceutical industry, big tech, you name it. But we need people to come together. I don't really care if you're politically agree on all things. That doesn't really matter at this point. And I also think we all need to, as you and I have talked about, we need to speak up against the media too and start protesting the media. I'm not talking about being violent, but the media is the gatekeepers and basically the PR for this system. And they are way too comfortable over the New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC. And they're just pumping this. Any parting thoughts, Steve? I know you got to go make dinner.
Yep. Just realized that we're about to hit a debt ceiling conversation again. And just for those people out there, this is going to be used to further the stuff that Jordan and I have talked about today. That debt ceiling is going to come with a bunch of bargains. And please don't be one of those people that think that there's merit in this conversation. The fact of the matter is the GOP is going to play a game where they try to make it seem like Joe Biden's spending has been irresponsible. The fact of the matter is the country spends money out of thin air, so don't fucking say anything stupid about it being irresponsible. Biden may suck, but there's nothing irresponsible about it. Stop. But the other thing is that this is money that's already been spent. It's already been promised. And what they're saying is that we're going to default on our debt. And I'm telling you right now that there's no need for that whatsoever. We could mint $1 trillion coin. The president, quite frankly, could simply say, I'm going to stand on the 14th Amendment. We are going to pay our bills, period. But do not allow any worthless son of a bitch to tell you that we are out of money and that we're spending recklessly and that we need to reduce the deficit or reduce the debt or pay it down. Anybody that says that is not your friend or they're economically illiterate. That's my parting words there, Jordan.
And the breaking news. Federal prosecutors have filed criminal charges against Congressman George Santos. Don't know what it's over. Exact nature of the charges couldn't be immediately learned. But Mr. Santos will appear in court tomorrow over whatever he's being charged. And my guess is some type of tax fraud or, what's that when you impersonate somebody illegally? False identity? I don't know, something like that. Because he did a lot of that. Also, breaking news, Tucker Carlson, after his unceremoniously dumping at Fox, is joining Elon Musk, and he's going to have a show on Twitter. So great for society. Big win there. Tucker Carlson will have a show on Twitter. It was announced. Steve, just stick with me for one more minute because I want to get. So I want people to know that your support, not every time, but a lot of the time, actually, your support to get us on the ground to cover Flint, East Palestine, Kalamazoo. It's a slow grind, but it does pay off at times. I just went to Kalamazoo, Michigan. For those that have been watching, I've been covering this fucking toxic paper mill. There's a lot of them around the country. This one, my eye is just starting to be a little less sore. After 2 weeks, my eye was super sore just from standing next to this plant that is emitting over 30 forms of toxic gas. Almost 2,000 black babies have died in this community since just every year. Almost 2,000 black babies are dying in Kalamazoo County, predominantly live in the neighborhood next to this plant. High rates of asthma, COPD in older people. The plant basically just pumps out this toxic gas, doesn't even have carbon filters. And the current governor, Gretchen Whitmer, her administration helped this plant expand by approving a $125 million bond deal in 2021 when they knew of the complaints, when they knew of the data, when they knew of the sickness. So I had covered it from afar while my wife was pregnant, while my daughter, who's 6 months old tomorrow, first couple months. But I just went there for the first time. Residents told me it was the first time a national reporter has come. I did my thing. We got some traction on Twitter. I think one of the videos on Twitter got like 70,000 views. Then through our partnership with Breaking Points, they published some of our on-the-ground reporting. We got, I think, 55,000 views there. I put some phone numbers in the descriptions. What do you know? A week after my trip, all of a sudden, after a 3-year study, so apparently it just happened to have been released after we got on the ground and blew the lid on this fucking shit. After 3 years, the health department finally released their study. Air pollution levels in Kalamazoo neighborhood are hazardous, the state health department finds, which they knew, by the way. They knew it was hazardous because the residents had been complaining. They knew the asthma. They knew the COPD rates. They knew the cancer rates in this poor black community. So they finally released the data. I went through it yesterday. The data, frankly, is bullshit. But at least they're acknowledging it's toxic. Now they're holding a meeting this week with residents. So there's finally something happening. And now, all of a sudden, after the health department releases the data, all of a sudden, the city that's been ignoring the problem and ignoring the residents for 3 years. And when I say ignoring, I mean the residents told me on camera they do not get responses from the mayor. They do not get responses from the county commissioners. They get blown off when children are dying. I reported on a 17-year-old black girl died of a severe asthma attack, had minor asthma before moving next to this plant. 32-year-old on oxygen and life support 24/7 lives next to this plant. People saying they can't have guests over because it smells so bad. People saying they can't open their windows. This city, in our quote-unquote government, ignored these people for years. Now, all of a sudden, after Status Coup was on the ground, this health department released a study. And by the way, I'm not just talking like, oh, some people watched it. No, this was getting around on Twitter. People were adding Governor Gretchen Whitmer, adding on Twitter the mayor. All of a sudden now, the city of Kalamazoo's top priority is the emissions from graphic packaging, which, by the way, is a multi-billion-dollar company. A multi-billion-dollar company that won't pay for carbon filters or give a shit that it's poisoning this community. By the way, Steve, economic justice here. Now the white community is getting poisoned after they expand and release more. Now, after they release more gases, parts of the west side, which is more white and a little wealthier, They're getting
Now
the
it's the
smell
thing.
now. Now it's a thing.
Now,
But the
now
point is, all of a sudden, and you know what? I will fucking be a little arrogant here because sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's hard, and you don't believe you're actually making a difference. But I was told by the residents, we are the reason this health study was forced to come out after 3 years. And we are the reason now the city of Kalamazoo is finally returning residents' calls. So this journalism does matter. I can't get into it, but I've been staying on Flint for the last 7 years. I've got some momentum on that too. And I also have momentum on a story on East Palestine. And I think I caught the EPA dead to rights in a big blinking red lights lie. So even after this Debbie Downer hour about fascism and the new Gilded Age, our on the ground investigative reporting does make a difference. We're not going to put somebody in jail every day, but we will eventually. We're not going to change the system overnight, but we will put some dents in it. So I need every single person watching, if it's within your means. If it's not, that's fine. But if it is, listen, this 2 weeks of reporting, I just went through it today, cost us $8,000. 2 weeks on the road. Me, Lewis, Colin, flights, hotels, rent-a-car, food. We had to buy another piece of equipment because one of them crapped out while they were in East Palestine. $8,000 for 2 weeks. You wonder why no one else is doing this? We don't have Norfolk Southern is not funding us. Goldman is not funding us. We're funded by you. So please, if you can, statuscoup.com/join. Statuscoup.com/join. $5 to $10 a month. For some people, I understand if it's not possible, but for others, if it is, we're not just talking out of our ass. We are walking the walk. And it's the only way we could also afford the other people too, like Lewis, who obviously we pay for going on the road. I'm trying to convince him to come on full time, but it ain't been easy. So pressure Lewis next time he hosts. Cut out your other projects. We need you full time at Status Coup. So a little peer pressure, Lewis. And we want to expand other things, but it costs money. And I've had opportunities to sell out. I had a lot of money dangling over me a couple of years ago, and it would have given us all the money we need, but we probably would have ended up being a coked out version of MSNBC, and I didn't want to do that. So please, statuscoup.com/join. Steve, tell the masses where they can find you, what you're working on these days. I know we've taken a pause from Let's Get Ready to Grumble because we were on the road and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll try to get back into you doing more here, but tell people where they can find you. And you've been a little deflated yourself lately. So if you need some therapy, Status Coup is here for you.
Yeah, man, I definitely need some. I mean, every time I say something slightly objectionable, you notice the sub count drops. It doesn't grow, man. But anyway, I'm Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I do the Rogue Scholar at Real Progress in Action YouTube channel. Please, if you hear something you don't like, stick around. You'll hear something eventually you do like. Also on Saturdays, I release a podcast called Macro, the letter N and cheese, on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you can get podcasts. It is definitely worth your time. It's been going for 4 straight years. We've never missed a week. Every week we've got a new show. So please check it out. It's an hour-long show worth your time. And obviously come here to work with Jordan when they need me. And hopefully I'll be more regular in the future. And with that,
hey, don't put it when we need you. You're a vital.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
Yes.
All right, folks. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Steve. Take care.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Let me. I starred some comments because I didn't see any. I didn't see any super chats. If I missed any, my bad. But Hulk Hogan's giant taint. All right. Your takes on duopoly are awful, but on the ground reporting is what you are good at and moves the needle. Why, thank you for the backhanded compliment. I think a lot of people don't like my takes, not because they're awful, but because they just don't agree. And that's fine. We don't have to agree. But one thing I don't think many people could say about me is that I am chasing clicks in terms of my political commentary or just going with the wind like some others. You will always get what I truly believe. And I value integrity and being consistent in your principles over going wherever the political winds change and what they call audience capture. Knight Rider Band, you need to research what RFK said. I have researched what RFK said, actually, before he ran for president. I've looked into him in the past. I think RFK, if he genuinely believes the things he's saying about autism or vaccines cause autism, if he genuinely believes that vaccines across the board are killing children and, causing all these things, then I question his intelligence, to be honest with you, because the data is pretty clear that that's not true. There's a difference between being a skeptic on something and having questions and having a draconian across the board view of something. And he's been proven wrong time and time again. And it's one thing to be wrong on something that doesn't have a lot of effect. It's another thing to be wrong and continually push out the wrong information when it could kill people and make people sick. So that's, you could send me research if you want. My email's open, info@statuscoup.com. But from what I have looked up as far as RFK, I'm not impressed. David, Jordan, can you show up for work more often? Jeez, what do you want me to work 24/7? I already work 15, 16 hours a day with a 6-month-old. So I don't really know how much more I could show up for work. By the way, if you don't see me live, I'm usually doing something behind the scenes for Status Coup or working on an investigative story. I'm on the phone with sources most of the day anyway for the last 7 years. Sources all over the country, not just Flint and East Palestine, but in other stories I keep tabs on. And I'm working on a book too. So sorry if that's not enough work for you. John, I'm not aware of anything politically that's worthy of coverage. I think this stream is very appropriate, Jordan. Thank you, Stephen J. Yeah, a lot of people try to stick with the news of the day and always be putting in the headline and thumbnail, whatever's trending or be topical. But sometimes I just kind of want to go live and just wing it. Not because we're not prepared, but just stream of consciousness, what's on our mind. And what was on my mind today is the country's falling apart. Fascism is growing, which I think is coming from the neoliberal free market. And with Steve, we could just go on for a while. So let me see if I missed anything. Thank you for the super chat. Samesies, thank you. I think, did I miss a super chat? Yes. Thank you. Shannon Kona, $10. Sure wish I could send you so much more. So grateful for all that you do. Come on, people. We need real reporting. Thank you so much for that kind super chat. By the way, we got a $200 donation earlier today from a viewer named Penny. So that's statuscoup.com/donate. So you could donate through our website at statuscoup.com/donate. And you could set it as a one-time donation. You could set it as a weekly, a monthly donation, a yearly donation. So that's another great way you could support us. It's through PayPal and Stripe, I believe. So thank you so much, Penny, for that very generous donation. Let me make sure I didn't miss any other member signups. We did get a member sign up while I was live. So welcome, Aaron. Signed up as a member. So thank you. Thank you. We'll probably be doing our monthly members call for May next week when Colin's back. So that is a perk for our paying members, and that's through Zoom. So I think we're going to do that next week at on Zoom. So that's always a lot of fun. We usually go for an hour to answer your questions, comments, concerns. So we'll probably do that next week because Colin is taking much, much deserved time off this week. And that's why the tech sucks, because I'm handling it. Thank you, Penny, for the donation. I will say I do like what RFK Jr. is saying about his uncle and that the CIA was in on it because it's finally getting more attention. That has been the biggest media cover-up of the last half century, the assassination of JFK. So I'm with you, RFK Jr., on your uncle. It's 100% clear. I don't think he answered it perfectly. I think I saw an interview he just did with Sean Hannity. I think he should come prepared. Here is the evidence, bullet, 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 including that Lee Harvey Oswald was a CIA or FBI agent. There is evidence of that, including the fact that witnesses were not interviewed. They buried some of the witnesses who would have said they were in the book depository with Lee Harvey Oswald and did not see him running down the stairs as they were running down the stairs. There were media interviews that were never shown. I should watch it because I might get in trouble on YouTube for sharing this information. But there were media interviews with people saying they saw shots coming from the grassy knoll on street level towards Kennedy that mysteriously were never aired on the local news or national news. I mean, there's so much other evidence. Oliver Stone has done great work on this in his documentaries. So I am happy. So wait, but we got 25 gift memberships yesterday, not just 15. Cadillac donated 5 and then 10 more. I failed math 1 year, but I do believe 10 plus 5 equals 15. Unless there's other memberships that I don't know about. I counted 15 new memberships yesterday through gifts. So let me know if I missed one, but I counted 5 that Cadillac generally gifted and then 10 more from Joanna. So if there's more than that, please let me know. 15 from Cadillac and 10 from Jenna. Holy cow, I missed that, Michael. Thank you. Now I'm in an even better mood. I'll have to find out if there's a way I could look into that. If there's a way I could look into that on the back end, because YouTube's a little complicated in terms of the YouTube memberships. Thank you guys for watching. We'll have more content tomorrow, stuff we haven't released yet from our reporting in East Palestine, also reporting I did in Flint, and reporting in Kalamazoo. Thank you. We'll see you guys tomorrow.